Sweet dude, new video. Let's talk about this is gonna be a little bit of a tougher thing to talk about. Almost like embarrassing. Yeah, embarrassing. I'd just be straightforward about it. But at the same time I feel like it could be real helpful to someone. There's all sorts of mixed emotions. It's a very embarrassing, but I think it's important. But then I also I'm like, how do I well, whatever, we'll just get into it. So I had a lifelong struggle essentially with going number this. Well, if I hold up two hands, it's probably not as accurate. So look, it feels weird to say it out loud. Like I'm just here sitting on a YouTube video and I'm like, let me tell you about popo. Let me tell you about caca. So we'll just go ahead and you keep the term number 2. How about that? When I was a kid, I don't really know when this started. I know my folks swore that I was some type of like lactose intolerant, which I don't know really. You know, I mean, I don't seem to have a problem with lactose since adulthood. We'll put it that way. And I don't really know if those are one of those things you can outgrow. In any case, when I was, I think, around, I want to say it started like 7, 8 years old, I started struggling with constipation. And it would get pretty bad. Like I just wouldn't want to go, just because it was painful and, you know, embarrassing, especially I think for a kid to deal with, right? Because you weren't able to go until it was like the body couldn't handle it anymore, and you freaking like, well, in essence, it's just it all comes out at once. Let's just say that. I'm trying to keep the imagery as clean as I can. So it's just painful and it's like embarrassing. You don't want to tell anyone. But obviously, eventually, like, you know, parents kind of start asking, like, well, what's wrong and what's going on? So, you know, eventually they got involved as well. But, you know, for a kid to go through that, it's like, you know, you don't understand it. You've got to deal with certain things such as like, oops, like, okay, like soiling yourself and like certain things like, oops, like it's just like interacting with other kids. You know, when this is kind of like lurking in the background, like it makes it hard. It makes it real difficult. So anyways, yeah, these problems continued throughout my childhood, and it messed with a lot of like, you know, you don't feel good, I think, when your body is like that. Like it's just not comfortable to be in your own body a little bit. And like, it's just, again, it's embarrassing. It's kind of shameful, and you don't, you know, just, I think really just detracts from confidence in yourself and just quality of life. Only because there's so much stuff swimming around when you're a kid, right? Like there's all these like things you're trying to overcome and figure out about yourself. But I mean, overall, I think I was a pretty cool about it. You know, it would go in waves of severity. Sometimes it was real fine. It was like manageable, not pleasant, but manageable. And other times it was like real, just like it really messes with your mood in your head. But, you know, we kept trying different things and, you know, couldn't quite get it to work. Couldn't quite fix the issue, right? Every time, even when I would make progress, eventually would stop. Can't tell you if that was from like, you know, just doing not good solutions, or if it was like from not being consistent with solutions. Who knows? But in any case, you know, when I was I think like a fresh adult, it was a little bit of like maybe 18, 19, 20. I was kind of thinking like, well, maybe a little bit younger than that, start of high school really. I was kind of thinking like, okay, I'm kind of over this, you know, like I gotta figure this out. So what helped a lot was that I started to just kind of focus on eating okay. Like I stopped drinking sugary drinks and stuff like that. Started to try to eat vegetables and fruits, incorporating that at least a little bit into my diet. And it seems like for a little bit, for those few years, it did help a lot. To the point where it was at least manageable, like I could hide it and stuff okay. So it still bugged me, but not to the severity of when I was a kid. And I was able to kind of like, okay, I'll have periods where it gets difficult, but it's able to be kind of a background thing that I don't have to like be conscious of at all times. But it would still really mess with me. And then it got even better in my early adulthood when I started to eat probably a little bit even cleaner again. I think my metabolism, like, maybe it slowed down or whatever, but it was definitely like kind of like in top gear. But I mean, then again, I was also like, you know, doing more exercise, but also like drinking a lot of alcohol, which can dry you out. So it was that same rocky experience. Like it would go in waves where it was just like, not as embarrassing as when I was a kid, because I could, kind of deal with it, hide it, whatever. But still just not fun, not pleasant. Like it really messes with, I'm telling you, it messes with everything that's like your day to day when it was at its worst. And it wasn't until, and I'm 30 now, maybe the past year, that I think kind of got a good firm grip on it. And I think it was a few factors. I can tell you now, I'm a much more disciplined person, which is to say that if consistency was the problem beforehand, it is most certainly not the problem now. Like when I try something now, I try to be actually pretty consistent with it, so I could, get measurable results and see kind of what to do and if it's working and if it's not working, and try to keep progress of that as best as I can. There we go. Nothing like a little bit of sunset to change the mood. But anyways, when I got over like the whole whatever rebellious, drinking a lot, doing young adult stuff, whatever. Of course, it affected my digestion, but on a more spiritual side, I think that's kind of where a lot of my struggles, I felt like I didn't really have any guidance. We were having a lot of just financial and otherwise just relationship issues at home, at my folks' house. And I think it was kind of like there's something very, I think, two sides to the whole constipation issue. Of course, it's the physical side, right? The health aspect of it, of course. But then you also have, I think, the more spiritual side, where it's like things such as your stress level, things such as like, what are you not letting go of? Are you just like hanging on to just bad energy from the previous day? But to make things extremely simple, at some point it kind of felt like enough was enough. And again, I recently just fixed this, but it was like if it wasn't as bad as I was a kid, but it was still to the point of just like not particularly fun when it was happening. It was like immediate, like my posture would slouch, my mood would be real grouchy, and I couldn't focus. And it was like walking around with an extra like backpack of like 50-pound weights on your back for no reason other than that they're just there. And it was very frustrating, because I feel like in my adult years, when I was still dealing with it later on in my 20s, I was eating pretty well. I was exercising okay. I did gain a lot of weight during the whole pandemic, though. So there was that. But I think at some point, when I started kind of my journey to gain discipline, become more of a high frequency person, it was like enough is enough. Like I need to figure this out. So thankfully, the way there was real straightforward. I don't know if I have a video on the whole weight loss eating journey or whatever, but naturally I kept that. I do eat, to like how they say your daily macros that you should be eating. And I did have to kind of tweak it, because When I was first doing it, I was so confused. I was eating, lean proteins, rice, and vegetables, and it was still like, like I was still having issues, and I couldn't comprehend it because it seemed like that alone had fixed it at first, along with exercising. And this was like a couple months ago, maybe like 6-8 months ago. But sure enough, after a little period of that had passed, it was back to like how it usually was, and it was real frustrating to the point where like this time I was having like legit, I had to go like get legit medical help because it was actually injuring me. So on the health side, how I fixed it was, we're still talking about that. The macro stuff is still good, right? It doesn't mean I suddenly was like, well, this isn't working, and then started eating like 5 pizzas a day. But my girlfriend's mom helped me out with this, where I started thinking things a little bit differently. Like, okay, how is my water intake? I can do like a black seed oil kind of cleanse in the mornings, every morning, and just do that consistently. When I eat food, make sure that if there's a serving of vegetables with that food, to eat that first so that the vegetables hit that. In the evenings, you can take probiotics, kefir yogurt. That way it's like, okay, cool, like this is gonna land in your stomach at the end of the day, settle everything down. And the keyword, I think, was consistency with that kind of stuff. So all of this was like, okay, like something's going on here. But I think as I started to fix a lot of my issues, like I started to become more confident in myself and kind of knowing what direction I wanted to go in, like kind of figuring out like who do I want to be, and starting seeing life as something that's not happening, to me. It's happening for me. Why am I, why get upset or go to Sunlight Tea Studio? Oh, geez, that's far. No, thank you. All right. Never forget that we're still technically working while filming these. But, along with all the diet stuff, it's the spiritual stuff was still kind of like, I was bottling in a lot of stress. I was bottling in a lot of feelings. I wasn't confident in myself. So when I would encounter difficult situations at a low frequency, it was approached with nothing but panic, uncertainty, just funny feelings in the gut, and all that stress. I mean, from my 20s alone, like, you probably can't tell on camera, but I have a couple grays in my hair. So not learning how to manage all that stuff, not learning how to have a good frequency at all times, which in turn, makes life freaking so much better, and it's so easier to deal with the stuff you don't want to deal with, so easier to deal with the stuff that stresses you out, so easier to feel like the person who you're meant to be is coming out and taking charge, right? Like, there's this, I think, misconception about masculinity where we think it's entirely like fucking alpha male, like, like you're Fred Flintstone with the Caveman Club, like, oh yeah, like I can do anything. But it's like, okay, mister, can you do anything? Like, how disciplined are you at the basics? Like, are you, happy with yourself? Do you love yourself? Because that's only going to come from, being very disciplined with yourself, because that's the only way to build just foundational confidence. So I think, it's a bit of a winded journey. I'd like to do a more dedicated video to that journey of discipline and confidence. But that was, I think, the more spiritual side of it, where it was like learning to let go of a lot of things, learning to like not put anyone except yourself first, because that way you can really start giving back to people, because you cannot give what you don't have. It was like kind of like back and forth, and like having those two finally in working order, it was like, okay, like they're starting to help each other out, the physical and the spiritual side. And eventually I received a really simple unlock that, along with that, because I was tracking macros, because that was part of my purpose, is to get real fit, I realized that there was just straight up like a fiber one, and how I was eating, even though I was eating like, vegetables and non-processed food and clean stuff like that. It was kind of like, well, what happens when you know, like there's this little section of it that just tells me how much fiber I should be allocating every day. Like what happens if I noticed I was only hitting it maybe like 30-40% every day. What if I hit it to the 100% mark, you know? And by this point, this part of the journey I think was only like maybe 2 months ago, month or two ago. It was like I was already like, okay, I've gone past like the pain aspect of it. I've gone past like the embarrassing aspect of it. Now I just really need to kickstart it. Like I need to kickstart my metabolism so I feel great every day, so I can go number 2, holds up 4 fingers, so I can do that every day, because there's something real, I think, again, spiritual about it. You let go of, you know, you cleanse yourself of the past day's malice, of the past day's results. And that was the final piece of the puzzle, I think, is to learn how to do that basically every day. Because that was the weirdest part of this whole mystery, is that sometimes I'd feel perfectly fine, but just I wouldn't go for days, and then it would get to the point again where it was like too much. Then you get grouchy Vic, then you get like freaking like, oh my god, like life is like so much heavier when dealing with this. But once I figured out that fiber thing, that was like the final thing. I was like, okay, this has all come together, and I feel like a freaking brand new man. I feel like just a normal person now. I think I wouldn't have reached all that, you know. I would kind of progressed along without having fixed everything about myself. So, you know, there's still plenty of work ahead of me. I still feel plenty of ripples from, you know, how much of a boof I used to be. Just a whiny, stressed out, uncertain person, I think is how I would describe it. And while I deal with some of those, how I look forward to the future and things I don't want to do and hardships I see approaching is like night and day, right? When it comes to feeling stressed or anxious about them, it's like, get rid of that. You don't need it. And that journey itself, like it's not something that's visible, right? Like it's not like muscles, or it's not like a Corvette pulling up to the driveway. But it's something that, like, once I had it completely dialed in along that point in my journey, like I feel like a millionaire every day. And it's something that's like, I can't describe it. It's, if you haven't had that struggle, it's something that's like, I don't, you know, I hate talking about it almost, because it's not like a life-threatening or like even chronic condition. You know, and I'm still not even sure if it was like, maybe I should have just been less stubborn and tried more things when I was younger. You know, it's something that's like a condition that's like, it really interferes with your day, but I can't call it like out of my control, basically. And so having this thing that has just been in the background of my life for like decades, and I could not, like, every time I would think about dealing with it, I get so grouchy. And, you know, finally being able to say, like, I feel normal. It's like someone just took the 50-pound backpack off my back, and I've been walking, you know, across continents for years and years and years with this weight on me. And I think once I finally had that figured out, even though it's not your traditional, like, your money problems, your relationship problems, your I was gonna say health problems, but it is a health problem. You know, just any of the traditional things that people look towards, like, this would fix this. It's something that's just very hidden from everyone. But having fixed it, I think is like made me such a happier person, and made me very excited for like what I can do now that I've eliminated this thing that's been on my mind for so long, you know, and just to see where it goes from here. But, you know, I think this journey, I think I just wanted to talk about it a little bit, like just to see what was up, you know, how it goes. But it's kind of tied into a lot of things that would require like a lot of explaining. So hopefully, you know, this reaches the right people or whatever. Like, I don't know, I had constipation problems. No one likes to talk about it. I think here I am trying to talk about it on camera, and it's a real beautiful thing. And I'm almost kind of describing like a much later chapter in the part of my, journey of self-development and becoming the person that I really want to become. But it's a very important chapter. And, I have all these dreams and things that I want and responsibilities on my shoulder. And it's like, those are all very important too. And I think like I kept trying to like achieve my dreams on a very bad foundation, and I would kind of just run off and try all these flashy fun things, making art, making videos, making this and that, learning how to animate, like, cool stuff. I'm glad I have that drive. I'm glad I have those skills, right? Those strengths. But I think this is one of those things where it's kind of like, this is what a strong foundation looks like, is solving problems like this for yourself so that you are able to tackle like, anything that life throws at you in a much better way. Because I cannot imagine, like, as I continue my journey, the problems get bigger, beefier, harder to kind of solve. And having this as a weight on my shoulders, I can imagine it would make things twice as hard, way less fun, because that's what we're here for. We're here to have fun. And it would just be a real bummer, I think. So yeah, again, later chapter in my journey, but a very important one. And I'm hoping all this other stuff, I'll either through my previous videos or another future videos that I'll make, will kind of tie in to that. It's a very strange place to, I think, explain all this stuff that happened to me. But, happened for me. But I think it's, it was real, like, I just felt real important, I think, to share it now anyways. So that's it. That's the end of our doo-doo talk. I'll get out of here before the sun sets. Get back to work. Mr. Swell Poops, come on. But yeah, I think everyone's got these types of problems internally that they don't want to talk about or discuss. But I think overall the message is that might be what you should be addressing first, before the new job, before the new hobby, before the new business venture, before the new relationship. And I think it's a good reminder to put yourself first and just know that, like, I think everyone's got these types of issues. There's stuff that's difficult and embarrassing, or embarrassing is a big one. No one wants to talk about the embarrassing stuff, shameful, and it's just hard to discuss. But, I think discussing them, unfortunately, as hard as it is a real crucial step in it, because I think all this stuff I figured out by talking with my close loved ones, by being vulnerable and just being at a point where I was confident enough to say, like, I need to tackle this, and I need to tackle this and solve this now. So that'll be it for this video. I'm gonna get back to work here. It's getting a little bit dark, It's almost Halloween, so figures I'd share the Nasty Brown story right before the holidays,